players have Tauros.
Yeah, I see Tauros. I see more Hydreigon, that's always good. Actually, double Dragon, that's not an uncommon archetype that we've been seeing as well develop in Scarlet and Violet. So Chongjun's going to be bringing that Hydreigon as well as the Garchomp. But then there's something else that I feel like we haven't gotten to see too much of yet. I'm looking at the Golden Go.
And both teams have it here. I mean, I think coming into this tournament, a lot of people were expecting this to be easily one of the top 3, top 5 most used Pokemon. And so I think that one thing that's cool about this Pokemon is how do you run it? You know, Choice Specs was overwhelmingly common, especially at the start of the format. But then we started seeing players move towards nasty plot sets, even recovery items. And so, yeah, Rosemary, I'm just hoping for some Tauros here.
I'm hoping for some Tauros as well. Maybe we get 2 Tauros on opposing sides.
As they say.
Is that?
I don't think that's a thing, but... Oh, there's one!
Wait,
okay.
one? Okay, hang on.
Yeah.
Well, I swear we didn't know. I swear we didn't know that this was going to happen. But, ladies and gentlemen, there are 2 Tauros on the field right now, right across from each other. And I cannot wait to see how this is going to go. Both Intimidates now, not going to hit the King Gambit, at least, that we know could be hiding in the back somewhere. But let's make it rain.
Yeah.
In 2 ways. It is raining, and then there's also a Golden Go on the field.
It is interesting, because I think from Chongjun's end, you see his option for that nasty plot instead, and I think it makes sense, because Make It Rain is just not that strong into either Pokemon. And, you know, Sohaib has that wide guard slot. But the battle of the Tauros here immediately, okay, it's just a Will-O-Wisp coming out on turn 1.
Wow. All right, so the Will-O-Wisp is going to connect onto Sohaib's Tauros, so that will limit its damage output, but it's still going to be going for these, like, bigger damaged water type attacks, but this is a pretty free nasty plot here for Chongjun.
Yeah, and actually opting for, okay, the Tailwind. So I think turn 1 there was the potential for Sohaib to consider maybe a Protect and just go Tailwind immediately. The problem is now your Tauros is burnt and it just does not do very much damage. That was very pitiful damage into Golden Go, honestly. Golden Go is now sitting at +2 special attack, looking pretty good. I really like, you know, Chongjun's conviction here. I think he was saying, okay, even if you have King Gambit, well, I have the Will-O-Wisp here, so I can just burn you. You look shocked, Rosemary.
I'm only looking shocked because of the Golden Go. We're going to see the switch first, okay? So Amoonguss is now going to be taking Chongjun Tauros' place, but it's just a Protect here. Playing it very, very safe around what Sohaib might be bringing for this turn. Just trying to target down that Tauros slot.
Yeah, I like the kind of decision to just really go all in here. Oh, nice play there, though. That's going to be a one-hit knockout. The Hurricane onto Amoonguss getting a critical hit as well. Wonder if it had any chance of surviving there without the critical hit. You imagine if it has special defense investment, it can survive there. So that is a disastrous turn for Chongjun as he essentially just loses a Pokemon and gets nothing out of it. Other than a free switch into Hydreigon, but I'm not sure that's worth it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd take that trade. No, not really. I mean, you still have been able to mitigate some of the damage output from Sohaib's side. That Tauros is still burned, and so you know that you don't have to play around too much offensive pressure right now coming out from the Tauros, but we were talking about how Pelipper can pack a punch on its own. That Hurricane is a great example of that. Just being able to get that one-hit knockout there, regardless if the crit mattered or not, and then also just kind of looking at how little damage this Tauros is doing. That Golden Go still has that +2.
Oh,
but
Pelipper doesn't miss, and that's just a KO. And actually, you know what's wild here? Chongjun's Golden Go has Citrus Berry, but because of the burn, actually does not activate the Citrus Berry, and so in exact range that you would want the Hydro Pump to finish things off. So even though that was a great Will-O-Wisp on turn 1, the Golden Go gets Nasty Plot off, but it's just outspent and just gets knocked out. And Pelipper feels like the MVP of this matchup so far. Look at how much damage it's doing.
I think so. I mean, it's secured 2 knockouts on its own here. So let's see if it can maybe get knockout 3 and 4. Another Intimidate now coming through, though, as Chongjun has no choice except to bring in that Tauros as the 4th and final Pokemon. This is what he's got left, Tauros and Hydreigon.
Yeah, and it's tough because the Hydreigon here also can't go for Protect. It's the Assault Vest set on Chongjun's team, and of course, Sohaib will know that as well, so you can start, safely launching attacks into that slot pretty consistently here. You know what's pretty interesting? Like, this has been a really fast-paced game. We haven't actually really seen Terras at all, and at this point I'm wondering, does Chongjun have a good Terra in him to actually potentially still win this game?
Well, we'll have to wait and find out. It's going to be a switch first here, as now Sohaib is going to bring in his Amoonguss, so that is going to be coming to the field in favor of that Tauros, but a protect here as well, just to see where that damage is going to be coming through, and it looks like Pelipper was going to be targeting down that slot, so smart protect there from Chongjun.
Yeah, buys a little bit of time here, and the Hydreigon is getting decent damage, but without a Life Orb or a Choice Specs, not enough to KO, and the Pelipper actually has the Citrus Berry here as well. And that's a pretty interesting item. I feel like when I see Pelipper, I almost always expect something like a Focus Sash, but with more bulk on Pelipper, you can get away with the Citrus Berry, and I just love seeing how Pelipper's been utilized here. I think very rarely is it like the main Pokemon dealing significant damage, but boy, has it been putting in work so far, and I just wish we could have known how much Amoonguss could have survived with if the critical didn't happen.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that's tricky about these matches, right? Like you see everything other than the stats, and so yeah, like it's hard to fully say. But basically now we got to think about how Chongjun can actually get himself back into this game. I would say the upside is that Amoonguss doesn't really do very much damage, but can you actually deny a Spore here right now is the question.
You're going to have to hope for just the knockout here as well, but Amoonguss still has some pretty powerful attacking moves on it too. I mean, you look at Pollen Puff can still do some damage, as well as the Leaf Storm, but a big pivot here coming in from Sohaib to be able to go for...
Oh, okay.
Okay.
If there's any way to get back into it, getting a close combat
pivot.
critical hit after an Intimidate is certainly the start, but I think you're still going to have to hope to KO Amoonguss here, and or go for a flinch with Dark Pulse.
Yep.
That could do something. That was a flinch.
Oh, it was a flinch. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, I mean, that's definitely an out that Chongjun has to play to right now. There is a 20% chance of a flinch from using Dark Pulse, so you just have to kind of hope that you hit those rolls, but Pelipper gets to come back in here, reset the rain. So, you know, what can this Tauros really do except to maybe continue to go for something like that close combat? Yeah,
I mean, that was a super unlucky turn for Sohaib, right? You got crit on the switch in and you ate up a flinch. If the flinch doesn't happen, you can just Spore into either of the slots there, put something to sleep, and it's really hard to win from there. But suddenly, this actually really turned into a game, right? Like, I like the decision to go for Dark Pulse flinch there rather than something like a Draco Meteor critical hit, saying, okay, this is my best bet of preventing the Amoonguss from actually getting a hit off. I'm actually curious if, like, Draco Meteor now just gets the knockout, but it looks like Chongjun's opting for that Dark Pulse once again, so just, you know, angling for another flinch here. So I'd say Sohaib still has the lead, but yeah, that was obviously not what you wanted to see this previous turn, and it was quite unlucky.
No, we are going to see that Grass Terror type, though, come through for the Tauros. And so just to give it maybe a bit more survivability, but also, I mean, you got to try to knock out this Pelipper. That was such a little damage. And that Pelipper is still able to go for something like a Hurricane. But it's going to be the Dark Pulse first here from the Hydreigon into the Amoonguss, but a Tailwind again to get set back up. Sohaib did such a good job of preserving that Pelipper for that.
And this time around, there is no flinch there, so the Hydreigon will get put to sleep. One thing that's really critical here as well is that the Tauros just committed the Terra, so now it's just pure grass, and so you can very safely Hurricane into that slot. And so, you know, the Tauros here does actually have Focus Sash, so we can take at least one hit, but doesn't feel great when your best means of offense right now is a close combat into a Pelipper, which we saw take very, very little damage.
Pelipper is, like, pretty bulky. It's just able to do everything now, isn't it? Getting the knockouts, surviving, dealing the damage. It's
I did not
wild.
expect it to be the MVP, like, coming into this. And so, okay, we see the Hurricane into Hydreigon rather than the Tauros. There's the confusion. Hydreigon will, of course, stay asleep this turn, but maybe reading into a potential Protect from the Tauros end. And also saying, okay, I don't really care if the Tauros attacks. What are you going to do? Your best offense is literally close combating here. So I like Sohaib's decision because he realizes, like, the one way Chongjun can maybe get back into it is if Hydreigon gets a quick wake up here. So just start getting consistent damage off immediately. And there's the Pollen Puff.
Just to keep the Pelipper, the MVP, alive in this game. I mean, you may as well. The Pollen Puff isn't going to be doing, like, insignificant damage if you're trying to just get the chip, but it's better to just keep that Pelipper, you know, pumping out these Hurricanes and whatever other damage it can. Tauros is going to go for a Protect here on Chongjun's side as the Hurricane is just going to keep trying to chip down this Hydreigon, and that's a great win condition here for Sohaib. It's just
it does wake up, though.
Ooh,
confusion right now. Does it hit? It does, and it gets the Snarl off. Okay, this, like... Oh, this is actually really interesting because, like, Amoonguss is pretty passive right now, right? You're actually not doing that much damage, but, man, these recovery berries are also going such a long way. Sohaib's doing a great job, like, not, you know, getting baited into attacking into a Protect, but the Amoonguss here actually this time opts to target into the Tauros slot. And so this is really interesting, right? Because, like, Sohaib is slowly losing his Pokemon. The Tauros is still intimidated. Pelipper is, still faster here, but it is at, -1 special attack, as you can see. And the question is whether or not, you go for Hurricane onto Tauros this time around. I think that'd be a fairly strong play, and there's still a Pokemon in the back.
There is. I mean, it could be the Kingambit, the Golden Go, or the Mimikyu at this point. And I feel like the way that Sohaib is playing, he's playing with something offensive in the back. But there's going to be a Hurricane Connect here onto the Tauros. A Focus Sash going to be able to keep it alive. But it's still just going to be going for these close combats.
For so long. Like, this has got to be a record for how long Pelipper
How
has
many
stayed
turns
on
has
the
it
field.
been?
Okay,
Oh
Hydreigon confused right now. Did get the early one-turn wake-up earlier. Is going to manage to go for the Draco Meteor. That's going to knock out the Amoonguss, but whatever is in the back for Sohaib, I feel like is so well positioned right now, right? You're facing against a -2 Hydreigon, a -1 Tauros, and Pelipper is still out on the field as well. But I cannot believe how long Pelipper has lasted. I think one thing to call out, and it's going to be the Golden Go here. Okay, well, the main thing I'm thinking is you could just Terra your Golden Goal now, but if you Terra, it's actually Steel Terra on Sohaib's end. You suddenly are weak to close combat from Tauros. And so I think the main thing you're maybe worried about here is probably a critical hit from Hydreigon, and so maybe you just actually don't go for the Terra and just, a single Make It Rain here presumably will, I was going to say knock out both, but since Hydreigon is Assault Vest, might actually survive. I think right now, Sohaib is still very well positioned, but I think Chongjun's done a good job to at least try to bring things back a little bit here.
All right, well...
And there's the close combat into the Golden Go.
So you got to hope for that, right?
Yeah.
You got to try to go for it there. But the Make It Rain will be able to deal the finishing blow to that Tauros, bring Hydreigon down to a sliver of HP. But this is still looking really tough here. Hydreigon has to be able to get a knockout onto something.
Yeah, and even if it were, like, Pelipper would be able to, just Hurricane it anyway.
Yep.
So, yeah, going for a critical hit there onto the Golden Go, but even if you get that crit, Pelipper sets up Tailwind. And
so that should be game number 1.
Exactly, yeah. So, it was I think it was just such an early... there actually was a slight win condition there where you get the critical hit onto Golden Go. Because Rain actually expired that turn, Pelipper's relying on Hurricane and Hydro Pump. So, because Rain expired, you could actually miss onto the Hydreigon. Hydreigon could have gotten the KO, but you would have needed a critical hit into a miss as well.
Yeah.
But... Chongjun did not give up after what felt like a really disastrous start, but I think Sohaib did a good job. As you'll see, he was going for Hurricane consistently into Hydreigon, saying, I know you have Assault Vest, and I know that you can protect with Tauros, so I can get consistent damage into Hydreigon. Even with Hydreigon waking up, it was still okay. And critically, it was all about baiting out a Protect from Tauros, because as soon as you bait it out, then you can target it the next turn, and that's what happened. And so,
True.
I think... that was not the way I thought Sohaib would approach the game when I was just looking at the teams. I thought Trick Room made a lot of sense, but he made Pelipper look like the best Pokemon in the format in that set. Like, oh my goodness. Question reality, and you're like, is it even worth it? And so,
I don't know.
Here we go, the run back. It's Tauros and Pelipper once again in game 2.
It looks like we're going to get the Tauros and the Hydreigon this time around from Chongjun as well, but just going to trade Intimidates for now.
So, yeah, I thought, turn 1 felt so strong for Chongjun in that last game, right? Able to get the Nasty Plot off, and then able to get the Will-O-Wisp off, but then nothing really happened afterwards, right? And so, this turn is interesting where, you could consider going for... I was going to say, do you think Draco Meteor is going to knock out Pelipper? I honestly, I don't kind of expect it to, given how bulky the Pelipper looks. Was wondering if there's any possibility to double up into it, but looks like we're just going to see a Protect and a double Will-O-Wisp plus Snarl into that slot, and then I would presume maybe a Tailwind from the Pelipper side.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. So we'll see at least the Protect get some value here, as well as the Hydreigon just trying to go for the Snarl, but of course that Protect can be able to keep the Tauros safe, but it will help to mitigate some of the damage output of that Pelipper.
Yeah, absolutely, which is actually really critical, and it's actually just a Hurricane to start, no Tailwind, so just getting that super effective damage off.
But look at that! The Snarl actually going to really be able to help there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the main thing here is being able to hang on for a little bit. Now, I do wonder if you double up onto the Pelipper slot, whether or not that's enough for a KO. Close combat's not doing that much because you're intimidated, but if you're able to, get that Draco Meteor off, it feels pretty nice. Now, the thing is that Sohaib, of course, does have his own Tauros, right? And so, you have to, one, worry about the speed tie, and then the other thing you have to worry about is maybe your Hydreigon getting hit by close combat. The thing, though, is, given the Intimidate, I would actually expect Hydreigon to survive a close combat here, and so, yeah. It's tricky, though. I think that was a nice turn 1 to just get a lot of damage off immediately, and this Pelipper is still just putting in so much work.
Okay, a little bit of a pivot here coming in from Sohaib, try to keep that Tauros a little bit safe as the Amoonguss now makes an appearance. Was able to do a bit of work in that game number 1, but it's going to eat the Will-O-Wisp, which feels like an even bigger role for that Amoonguss to take here.
Yeah, it's a great switch in there. Make sure you conserve Tauros this time around, and we're going to just see a Snarl here. So it's passive. I mean, you are chipping away at Pelipper now, and so Pelipper might actually finally be in KO range from like a Draco Meteor, but Tailwind is going to get set up this time around. And so I think it's interesting because Sohaib's team, like, it doesn't feel like there's that much damage from like the Amoonguss. I was going to say there's not that much damage from Pelipper, but actually, no. I think
you got to take that back now.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, like, with the Amoonguss and -2 Pelipper out on the field right now, your damage output is fairly lacking at the moment. So this turn, I think, like, Chongjun can maybe apply a little bit more pressure, but the problem for him is how do you actually knock out Amoonguss right now? I don't think you can.
No, I mean, especially when this Intimidate's going to be coming through as well, at least to limit some of the output from Chongjun's Tauros. But pivot here too, so Tauros now going to be leaving the field in favor of this Golden Go.
And it's a great switch in.
It feels very, very safe here.
Absolutely, and it covers, of course, for the Spore, thanks to its abilities, so, okay.
Just a double switch here.
I love this, though, from Chongjun's end, because both of these Pokemon are immune to Spore, thanks to, Amoonguss' typing, and then Golden Go's abilities, so the Spore goes into the Amoonguss slot here. But this is some really, really nice pivoting, I think, from Chongjun's end, because now you can actually redirect attacks away from the Tauros. Actually, I say that, but the Tauros on Sohaib's team is actually safety goggles, and so that actually won't be relevant here. So the Tauros can theoretically apply pressure with a Raging Bow into the Golden Go slot. I think one question here for Chongjun is, do you just go for a potential switch? He's actually, I really like what he's opting for. It looks like that's the Pollen Puff option here, saying, it's time for me to get Golden Go activated, and this time around I have Amoonguss alive, so I can use redirection a little bit better.
Right, exactly. So a Rage Powder here, going to be coming through for the Amoonguss. So, unfortunately, maybe not going to be able to get the healing that maybe Chongjun would have been expecting, but also it doesn't affect Amoonguss, so you're not taking any damage though, so I guess it's fine. Everything is fine.
One thing I'm curious about is the speed interaction between the Golden Go's here, but I think Chongjun kind of had the right idea in game 1, saying, okay, I'm going to try to get Nasty Plot off on Golden Go and go from there. The problem is the Amoonguss on his side ate up that critical hit from Pelipper, just guaranteeing the knockout. This time around, Golden Go is activated now with that Nasty Plot, and of course you do have to be a little bit worried about the opposing Golden Go, but maybe not as much because your Amoonguss, of course, can just redirect a potential Shadow Ball away from the opposing Golden Go. And so I really, really like how Chongjun positioned this game, and I think he's saying, okay, Sohaib, your team's actually kind of passive, so I'm going to work hard to put myself in a position where I just get a single Nasty Plot off and can start sweeping you.
Yeah, he's been conserving his Pokemon a lot better. I mean, yes, there were some critical hits that played a role in that first game, but Chongjun is allowing himself way more time to be able to make use of the setup that he has. I mean, that Amoonguss is just out of here. Golden Go just took so much damage, despite the fact that Sophie is also trying to get his Golden Go set up.
Yeah, I did enjoy kind of like, hey, you have Nasty Plot, I can boost myself up as well. But the thing is, I think Chongjun's Golden Go just feels generally a little bit better positioned thanks to this Amoonguss having redirection support, right? So Tauros comes out. Intimidate is really not relevant here at all. It's got the safety goggles item, and so it will ignore Rage Powders from Amoonguss's end. So now I guess one of the questions I have is, can you actually angle for knockouts in this position, right? It is +2 Golden Go from the opposing side, and so you could go for something like just like double up into like the Amoonguss slot, for example, or you can make it rain and then just go for like Raging Bowl into the Golden Go slot. But I like how Chongjun's playing this, saying, okay, you know what, I'm just going to switch. I'm going to get a quick Intimidate off onto your Tauros to start and decrease the damage output of that.
Yep, I think that's really smart, especially when Tauros is at such low HP. You've got to find utility from it elsewhere. You might not be able to get the damage off, but it's time for a Terra. Let's see what is going to be terastallized this time around. It's going to be the Golden Go. So changing over to Steel as we see what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and I think this makes a lot of sense. Sohaib's essentially trying to go all in on this turn, right? I love the play from both sides. I think Chongjun making the passive play, saying, okay, in doing this, now I kind of, one, get the Intimidate out. And look, this is actually going to be so brilliant for Chongjun, because if Make It Rain comes out right now, which I would expect it to, you not only got the Intimidate off onto the Tauros, but you also make the Golden Go eat up a special attack drop. So this, just conserving this Tauros actually brought so much value for Chongjun, because not only were you able to get the Intimidate off, you were able to use it as a switch in, and now it is, like, think about how much was committed that turn, right? You had to give him a special attack boost on the Golden Goal, and the Terra was committed there as well. So now it's a free switching back into the Amoonguss. You could go into Hydreigon here as well, I think, but Amoonguss would allow you to at least Rage Powder and allow your Golden Goal to survive Shadow Ball, for example, but, you know, looks like Chongjun's contemplating the Hydreigon. Either way, though, I really, really like that turn from Chongjun's end, and I can see what Sohaib was going for. He was essentially saying, I'm trying to pick up a double knockout right now. Let me just knock out Amoonguss with the Make It Rain, and then because I've got the safety goggles and Tauros, I can just Raging Bull as well. But it's a great switch in from Chongjun to get around that. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the Amoonguss is still going to be at full health now, too, so that's something else that I just feel like is just such a bulky option. And in fact, Chongjun's going to end up switching that back into the battlefield. And something else that I was thinking about, too, is just, you know, when thinking about the Terra options that Sohaib has available in terms of, like, the Tauros and also the Pelipper and the Golden Go that's left, I mean, Pelipper's Terra type is Grass. That actually would have maybe been kind of cool, just knowing that there weren't too many options to be able to deal super effective damage towards it, just to maybe get around some of the Rage Powders, but it's time for another Terra type, and you can see the difference in how these Golden Go have actually been teched out, because Chongjun's is Flying type.
Yeah, so Flying use, you know, to kind of get around the ground weakness often that you're going to see, and so Golden Go actually just opts for Protect. Here's the Raging Bull coming out, and it is a critical hit, okay, but one, there's the Citrus Berry, and two, I think the Pollen Puff is actually going into the Golden Go slot, so it might just end up at full HP anyway. But yeah, Golden Go here just opting for, I believe it was the Make It Rain, and so going to get some decent damage off onto the Tauros slot. Look at that. That's 50% onto it for a not very effective attack.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage for sure. And then the Pollen Puff, just to be able to keep it so healthy. I don't think you even care at this point about the special attack drop that you're getting from the Make It Rain. Because now it's pretty neutral. I mean, it happened to Sohaib. It's also happened to Chongjun now, so the Golden Go are still going to be able to fire off these Make It Rains, but the Amoonguss being alive is just like such a big differentiating factor. You can still go for a Nasty Plot again if you're Chongjun.
Yeah, I think like it's the only thing Chongjun's worried about at this point, in my opinion, is critical hits. I also love how he's played with this Amoonguss, by the way. Just the ability, like going for Pollen Puff immediately, even when your Pokemon is at full HP, saying, well, I have a lot of bulk to work with. This time around, just opting for Rage Powder to make sure you don't get crit by the Shadow Ball here. And I don't even think a Make It Rain from the opposing Golden Go gets the KO. Nicely done on Sohaib's end to actually not go for Shadow Ball. Does just go for the Make It Rain.
Oh,
he spoke too soon!
What? That was a huge knockout!
That wasn't even a crit. I really didn't think that would just get the KO. Wow.
Okay, well, we learned something incredibly important there, and that is just, like, maybe how, like, the bulk is distributed amongst the team.
Wow.
That was an impressive knockout for that Golden Go to get. I mean, you do have to consider it as well that you did Terra to Steel. So you are getting that additional stab from the, you know, Steel type, Make It Rain. So that is another layer on top of that, but I still was not expecting that.
No, that hit a lot more than I expected. I feel like I'm also maybe conditioned to think, oh, Golden Go with Nasty Plots, like they run a lot in bulk and maybe not max special attack, so I wonder if it is just max special attack on the opposing side.
Still.
And yeah, I felt like Chongjun had pretty good control of this game, but all of a sudden by committing that Flying Terra, it allowed the Make It Rain to do super effective damage, and I think the Flying Terra actually in the end will have punished Chongjun in this one, because if you just stayed in Steel Terra, you could have gone for the Rage Powder to go by, like, redirect that Shadow Ball anyway, right? And so, yeah, this Golden Go is putting in so much work right now.
Yeah, it's looking really good. I mean, Sohaib is definitely looking for a win here. A win in this game will secure him the victory and keep him an undefeated record of 4-0. But Golden Go going for another Make It Rain, and now just Hydreigon just dealing some damage here with the Snarl as well, trying to mitigate that special attack from the Pelipper, but also, more importantly, gets the knockout onto the Golden Go. So Sohaib has the Pelipper and the Tauros left versus Chongjun's Amoonguss and Hydreigon.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Tauros has the safety goggles, and so we can just kind of come out and click the close combat into the Hydreigon slot, and it's a guaranteed KO, and then Pelipper can just Hurricane into the Amoonguss, and so yeah, I really thought Chongjun had such good control, but it was just the Golden Go on the opposing side. I think maybe in my head I was also like thinking, oh, it's going to survive because Golden Go's Steel, but it was actually Flying Terra, as you called out. Even then, though, I thought it would maybe had a chance of surviving, but no, that's just going to be it. And Sohaib is going to win against Chongjun Peng 2-0 and go to be 4-0 in this tournament.
Yeah, what an expert performance. And you know, still had to play around some really tricky setups there from Chongjun. Chongjun got a free nasty plot with the Golden Go was still able to secure some big damage